What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Ryze Hoops. I am Simone Stanley. He is Carter Wilson, and it is time for the championship previews. Carter, I think the biggest surprise to some people was Cherokee being in the championship round, but you called it early on as one of the teams to watch out for.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they had the pieces there. I thought that the road that they had was a little bit more favorable. That win against Norcross is huge. I mean, nobody really expected that. I think most people were just kind of writing in Norcross as being in that state championship against either Grayson or Wheeler, which ended up being Wheeler. But instead, we're going to get a region game between Cherokee and Wheeler, who have played 3 times already this year and getting ready to play the fourth, and we'll see if Wheeler can come away, winning all 4 of those games.
So what do you expect from that matchup? Can you see Cherokee pulling off another upset?
I think you never really know what to expect. I think Wheeler's obviously the favorite going into it when you have guys like Isaiah Collier and Arrington Page. Like, I think you're going to be the favorite in pretty much any game that you go into. It's hard to beat a team that many times in a year. I mean, it's hard to beat a team twice in the same year, let alone 4 times. So, and down in Macon, you never really know. But I would say that Wheeler does have, the advantages just having those high major guys.
Yes, definitely. And then in the Cherokee game against Norcross, that foul trouble was really getting to both teams, and that's something that you really can't have happen against somebody like Wheeler, like getting into foul trouble.
Yeah, especially in the front court. I mean, Wheeler just has so much size that I think that Cherokee kind of is lacking, and I think that's where Wheeler's going to have a huge advantage is, guys like Arrington Page, obviously. He's been spectacular all season. So, when you have a guy like that in the middle and then you have more size just to back him up, it gets a little tough. So guys, for Cherokee, like Dastin Hart's going to have to be huge. He's going to have to play really, really well, and he's going to have to stay out of foul trouble because he's the guy that, gives them size, and they don't have a ton of depth in the front court. And then their guards are going to have to play really well. They're going to have to score it. Lawrence Sanford was really good against Norcross in the semifinals. And then Braylon Giddens was another guy who was in the second half, just huge buckets in the second half. I mean, so those are guys, and then Cam Pope and Tate Owens, obviously, other guys that they're gonna have to score it well, and they're gonna have to make shots. They're gonna have to shoot a high percentage, I think, to win the game because you have to overcome all of those other factors when it comes to Wheeler's talent level and their size.
So what do you think about Kale and Eagles Landing? I feel like that's one of the hardest matchups to really sort out and predict.
It's one that we've been waiting on. I mean, I'll say that. I mean, these have been the 2 best teams in 5A, and they kind of proved it down the stretch. I mean, I don't think a ton of these playoff games between either one of them were particularly close. So, I mean, it's a game that we've all kind of been waiting for. A lot of people have had them 1 and 2 in the state, depending on who you ask, who would be 1 and who would be 2. The one thing that I think really stands out in the matchup, I think that Kell has a lot more size. Obviously, Peyton Marshall in the middle is going to give you more size than pretty much anybody. But then, throwing guys like Cannon Richards, I mean, I think they have a lot more size. But Eagles Landing's backcourt is really good. Like, David Thomas has been the man all year long, scores the ball so well. And they have a lot of depth in the backcourt, and they can pressure the ball, and if they can make shots from the outside, or maybe get a couple of those big men for Kell into some foul trouble, and they can easily pull off an upset. I think it depends on how well they handle that size and how much their backcourt can be productive.
So that would be considered an upset?
In my mind, I think it would. I think in most people's minds, I think it would. I think if you ask a lot of people, I think Kell would probably be, either 1 or 2 in the state, regardless of class. Depending on who you ask, I think a lot of people would throw Wheeler in there, and then they'd probably throw Kell at number 2.
Okay, I can see that. So, especially when you have Peyton Marshall, like a huge advantage down low.
I said it before, in years past with Burkmar and Malik Ewan, being the most unique player in the state. And I think Peyton Marshall's that guy now. I think he's the guy that you can't really replicate. So no matter how much you try to prepare for him, it's so hard to do just because there's so much size, and then he's got so much skill level, and we've seen him. He can just be dominant on the glass. Like he can play volleyball on the glass and just offensive rebound after offensive rebound until he gets a bucket. Like it's just like he's so unique that you think you know what you're getting going into it, and then you actually get into it and you're like, oh, maybe this is a little bit different. So it's a tough guy. He's a tough guy to really contain and keep off the glass and, you know, keep from being productive.
So what other matchups jump out to you?
I like the matchup in 4A. I really like the Pace Academy, Fayette County. It's two teams that we've seen in state championships in recent years, albeit in different classifications. But Fayette County, I think they haven't really gotten the full love in 4A that they probably deserved all year. I mean, you got a guy like RJ Kennedy, he's been on an absolute roll. Like he's just game after game, 20 plus, 30 plus, whatever it is. Like he's been on an absolute tear. And then, you know, they have a great group of, you know, sophomores that are on the come up, and they'll have their time too. And then Pace Academy defends so well. So it's kind of like that offensive and defensive matchup. Eric Chatfield and KJ Kennedy Eric Chatfield and KJ Green for Pace Academy. You know, they can really defend. And I kind of mentioned that going into the Westover game in the Final Four, like Westover's guards can score, but Pace can really defend. And I think it's kind of that same deal. Like you have a guy like RJ Kennedy who can really score, and Pace guards that can really defend. So I think you're going to get kind of a great matchup there on both ends of the floor.
Okay, so what about Kings Ridge, Mount Pisgah? Two really exciting guards that both of those teams bring.
Yeah, I think that one's really exciting. Micah Tucker was really good in the Final Four. He was very, very good down in Milledgeville. And I think he's kind of the guy to watch here too. He's got the ability to go for 20 plus, 30 plus, whatever it is. And he's always just really productive. And Kings Ridge, I think a lot of people kind of wrote him off being a 4 seed. You know, they kind of, you know, they didn't play well in the region tournament, came away with a 4 seed, and they've been the road warriors all the way through. I mean, they've kind of been, you know, just counted out every step of the way. They played at Social Circle the first round, which was a tough game, and just have had tough games all the way through. But they run that like really good motion offense that just always gets open shots, and they just know how to execute on the offensive end. And, you know, they're going to be looking to kind of avenge that loss last year that they had in the state title game against Green Forest, and this is their chance to do it.
So are there any other games that pop out to you?
I think the Westside Providence game is interesting too. I think all the games are interesting, to be honest. I mean, if you look at Lee County and Alexander in 6A, and like I said, Westside against Providence, and Sandy Creek's got a chance to win one in 3A. I think all the games have kind of their own unique storyline. Westside's got a chance to repeat. You know, I think every game's got kind of that storyline to it, whether we expected this to kind of be the way it folded out or not. Each game has a uniqueness to it, and you know that it has like Sandy Creek's looking to get back in the state championship and win a game. Like they lost it in a couple years back with Jabari Smith, and you know, I just think every game's got that storyline to it that'll be a factor, and the matchups are all really good, whether you know about them or not. Like I think not a lot of people know about Lee County in 6A just because they're South Georgia. But DJ Taylor's a guy, you know, can really pass the ball, can really make off the dribble, going against Alexander, who kind of limits that. So it's kind of got great matchups, offensive, defensive, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to all the games this week.
It's going to be a good one. So are you going to any other games, or?
I'm going to try to. I'm part of the people that are like, hey, bring these games up to Atlanta. Like, Bring them up. Like, especially after the 7A, I think at Georgia State, I think people are now like, you know, the new arena at Georgia State, the atmosphere that those games had, everyone's kind of like, hey, bring these up here. Like, these are the places. This is the place that these games need to be. And I'm going to be a part of that. I'm going to kind of jump on that bandwagon too.
Yeah, but we're biased though because we live in the city. Like if we lived near Macon, we'd be like, keep it in Macon.
That is the way that it is, but I understand the fairness between it. I get like, hey, geographically, but just that atmosphere in 7A at Georgia State, I think was kind of unmatched. It's one of the better atmospheres I've been in as a part of playoff basketball at a neutral site. So I'd be all for it if they wanted to do it. If they want to leave it in Macon, by all means. But that atmosphere was special.
It was. I'm definitely all for it, but I understand why I'm all for it too, because it only took 15 minutes to get home.
it definitely is a factor up here for sure.
Well, it all comes down to this Wednesday through Saturday. Champions will be crowned. I am Simone Stanley. He is Carter Wilson. This is Ryze Hoops. Thank you guys so much for joining us.